Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Oviedo City Council meeting. It is Monday, February 15th, a little bit after 6:30 p.m. I'm going to now call the meeting to order. We have all members of council are present. We have no ceremonial items this evening, so I'm going to move on to entertaining a motion to approve the minutes for February 1st, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
No, sir.
Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the second item on our agenda, it is the third item on our agenda. It is the citizens' comment portion of our meeting. I have one written request that just showed up. So we'll start with this one, and that is from Lisa Booth. How are you tonight? I am great. Lisa, you just need to do your name and address for the record first, and then you can take your 3 minutes.
Okay, 573 Rachel Court, Oviedo, Florida. I live in the Cedar Bend subdivision.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm here this evening in reference to your consent agenda item number 6, Foster Grove. What brought us here, I'm going to give you a quick history. I did time this, so I won't extend the 3 minutes. During the recent rain event last month on the 27th, our yard, as well as our neighbors, were flooded as a result of the construction. We contacted the city, and they came out to inspect. Amanda Cordes actually came to my home because we had a lot of sand and such that flooded into our backyard.
Thank you. We're going to have to leave that with the clerk, okay?
Okay. Due to the event, we had a meeting actually with the city and MI Homes this past Saturday to discuss our concerns regarding the flooding and any other issues that we may have. MI's representative, Derek Henry, was there, and he stated they wanted to be good neighbors. We appreciated that, and he wanted to know what our concerns were as basically being on the other side of the fence. So we had 3 main concerns: flooding and drainage issues, specifically behind MI's lots 14 through 18, with a focus on lot 18. Lot 18 will be in the middle of my yard as well as my neighbor to the right, and his yard also got flooded. And you guys actually have pictures here somewhere with the folks that met with us.
Yes, ma'am. You did send those to us.
The height of the base grade and how it is 4 to 6 feet above our current backyards, and how that is going to, in our opinion, devalue our homes due to this elevation. And if you look at that and you see my fence, if you see above that where there's a pile of dirt, that's actually where their homes are going to start. It actually goes higher as the neighborhood goes up. There's going to be a fence on top of that as well. And we also asked that they would not build 2-story houses along that line, as it's going to tower over us. I use the analogy that we were paupers amongst a castle. That's kind of how we feel. MI did agree with the city to put up a wrought iron fence instead of the undesirable, I say ugly, white PVC fence that they put along the Allendale side. And we are very grateful for this, and we're grateful for them meeting. But we really would like to request a couple things before the plat approval. One is that the recreation area that they have slated in Track D maybe be moved to Lot 18. Perhaps this will help with the engineering of the flooding in that area. That seems to be a problematic area for them. And so, you know, and also if they would consider the 2-story houses to be 1. I don't know that there's anything else that can be done about the elevation at this point, but anything you could do, we'd really appreciate. And I brought some other pictures if you're interested.
You can hand anything you'd like to hand in. We just have to be able to keep.
And these show basically what they're going to see, rooftops.
We'll just pass them down, and everybody can pass them back and forth.
See, these are easement pictures, just kind of in between where the wall is. One picture. That's the pipe they have in their wall.
Okay.
Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Sorry. That is the end of the written request that I have. Is there anybody else who would like to address council at this time? Hearing none, I'm going to close public comments. And Lisa, I am going to let you know that Derek has already spoken with us, and this item is going to get pulled off the consent agenda, and I think they have a few things to offer that are going to make you happy. Back up to calendar. All righty. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda are items 4 through 10, with a request from the applicant that we pull item 6, Resolution 3145-16, and make that 6A. Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Deputy Mayor, you've got the floor. Any comments on the rest of the consent agenda?
No Muslim. That's really perfunctory stuff that staff has worked out and things that we need to do. That's it.
Great. Who is the second? Was that Councilwoman?
Oh, it's good.
Okay. To the left? Councilman Britton?
Good.
Anything? Councilman Henkin? Good. All righty. The motion on the table is to adopt the consent agenda as presented, moving items 6 to 6A. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let me just get over to item 6. Item 6 is resolution number 3145-16. Mr. Cobb, why don't you just give us a brief introduction, and then I'll let the applicant speak.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for City Council to approve the Foster's Grove at Oviedo final plat. The plat consists of approximately 31.73 acres. This is a plat of 64 single-family lots. It is the first phase of a 94 single-family lot development. The city surveying consultant reviewed the plat per state statute and has found the plat to be compliant with state statute. The city attorney also reviewed the plat and found it acceptable. The infrastructure improvements associated with the plat have not been completed or accepted by council. The applicant has submitted the necessary performance guarantee bond for that. Staff found the plat to be consistent with the approved preliminary subdivision plan, and therefore staff recommends approval of the subject plat. It is recommended that City Council adopt resolution number 3145-16.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Mr. Henry? Mr. Henry, if you can just give us your name and address for the record, and then we had a brief conversation about a few of the complaints that were brought forward, and I think you wanted to address those.
Yes, sir. Derek Henry. I'm with MI Homes, and our address is 400 International Parkway, Suite 400, Lake Mary, Florida. The concerns, Ms. Booswright, we had a meeting Saturday morning, and their concerns were basically three things that she said. One, from the recent rain events, we had water and some dirt that intruded upon their yards. When Ben was there also, the inspector for City of Oviedo, and he concurred with us that it wasn't at final grade. Once it's at final grade, we shouldn't have that problem again, because our water from the wall goes towards our roads and away from their houses. And down by lot 18, where we had a breach, it was just a weak area and dirt. We've since extended the wall so that we should not have that problem again, and created a swale that goes into our pond. So we'll capture all the water on our property and keep it on our property.
Now, that's required by St. John's, correct?
Yes.
And state statute. I mean,
Yes.
you're not allowed to flood somebody else's property.
No, sir. No, sir. And that's the reason why the project was designed the way it was. We got to make St. John's happy. So, yes, sir.
Right, so that's why you have the elevation, so you can run the water into your property.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
and the other issue was the one-story homes on our lots 13 through 18, and after speaking with management today, we have agreed to do that.
Okay. Well, that makes it very easy for us then.
Is that making lot 18 the recreation site? Is that what I heard?
Well, that was the first I heard that was today. That was the first I've heard of that today, but we really don't think that that is needed. I mean, we truly believe that, our engineer of record was there with our latest revisions, adding the wall, adding the swale, things of that nature. We should not have a problem. But we did agree to do the one-story homes on all those lots.
Okay. Could you explain the purpose of the pipe that we're looking at that's sticking out from the wall?
I'm
The
not
purpose
sure.
of the
Get the
pipe,
show.
there's a pipe in it.
I haven't seen the picture, I apologize. Is that the base, that's the weak pipes in the wall? That's the weak pipes in the bottom of the wall, and what that is to relieve hydraulic pressure on the back of these retaining walls. If you don't do that, and they do it everywhere, if you don't do it, you could create the water pressure and create a malfunction in the wall, and you don't want that to happen. So you relieve that water pressure is what you do. As standard practice for installation.
That makes sense, but it contradicts your statement where all the water from your subdivision stays in your subdivision.
Well, it's just very little water that comes out of there, and it's just mainly to relieve that pressure more than anything else, just as a secondary measure to ensure the integrity of the wall.
Do they stay on your side? If I see the picture again, it looked like there was an alleyway. I didn't know if that's on.
No, it's I mean,
Still on.
the wall is sitting a couple of feet back into our property. So what little water comes out of there should just perk right down in the ground. But that picture is a little dark. My guess is that's maybe the footer of
Because
the
that would
wall.
be, if you can see this one, is that like down at the bottom of this wall? It'd be this, the weed pipes are down there at the
Yes,
bottom of this?
yes.
And this is still your property that would lead down into the drainage, the swell that you have down there?
No, sir, it's not going to get around there.
Okay.
It's going to be very little water that's coming out of here.
Right.
And it'll just perk right down in the ground.
Okay.
That's what it's going to do.
But it still the perk, like you said, it's set back off the other property, so when it's still perking on your property.
Anything else, Councilman? We're good.
Thank you.
All righty, so now we need a motion that incorporates the commitment made by the developer, and then I would also suggest that we include in the motion at the request of the city attorney that we will also amend the developer agreement to reflect what's being committed to this evening. So is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
That's lots, was it 13 through 18?
13 through 18.
Through 18. I just want to make sure it's 13 through 18, and it amends the development agreement to reflect those changes.
Correct. Motion and a seconder agree?
And that's only one-story homes on 13 through 18.
Mr. Colbert, does that satisfy your needs?
If the developer will agree in the record to the amendment of the development order and that they will execute it upon submittal.
Come on up, Derek. Derek, for the record, do you agree that we're going to amend the development order to include single-story homes on lots 13 through 18 as committed to us this evening?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. That satisfy you, Mr. Colbert?
That's fine.
All righty. Everyone's happy. All righty, so the motion on the table is to adopt the plat. We're going to amend it that only lot 13 through 18 will have single-story homes. The developer has agreed that we will amend the development order before construction begins, so that way there's no questions ever. Agreed? Council? Got the motion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. All righty, so public hearings, we have none, no first readings, no resolutions. Discussion items, Mr. Cobb, item 14 is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for council to provide direction regarding assistance provided to special events per Section 2-291 of the city's Code of Ordinances. At your August 6, 2012 meeting, the council adopted ordinance number 1546, which provided for the waiver of certain event fees, certain permit fees, and other fees that were associated with special events. That ordinance was codified into the Section 2-291 of the Code of Ordinances. This section also defines a city signature event, a nonprofit organization, a for-profit organization, and events that are organized or sponsored by the city itself. The This section also provides for the waiver of certain permit fees for nonprofit special events. However, it doesn't provide for assistance pertaining to the rental of city facilities or the provision of city services to support these nonprofit special events. Section 2-291 provides for a waiver of all fees and all costs associated with a city signature event up to a maximum of $5,000. It also provides that all fees and costs can be waived that are associated with a city-sponsored or city-organized event. A city signature event has a very simple definition. It's an event that is designated as a city signature event by resolution of the City Council. That's it in a nutshell. There is no criteria that says what defines it. Basically, all staff has to go by is the signature events that we've already designated, which would be Great Day in the Country, Taste of Oviedo, and the barbecue blowout. There is also no definition for a nonprofit event. Now, there is a definition for a nonprofit organization, and it's very limiting. It limits it to organizations that have a 501c3 designation. One of the things that we're recommending that we take out the 3 so that it just says 501c. That way, organizations that, let's say like the Chamber of Commerce that has a 501c4 designation, could also qualify as a special event. But one of the things that we have been encountering is that folks that have special events are usually raising money for a charity. And so having as little to no cost is very important to them. When they want to have their event at a city facility, and we can't waive the facility costs. We also can't waive the costs associated with the provision of services to support them. Section 2-291 is very clear. The city manager shall deny any requests for fees other than what is allowed through that section, which for a nonprofit event is the application fees for the special event permit, as well as the tent permits, the sign permits, those things. The only way that a nonprofit event could capture any other type of assistance from the city is for it to be declared a city signature event. Herein lies the problem, because the code is very clear. The city manager is to deny it and not bring it before council. It's very clear. So what we're here tonight to do is to ask your advice. We took a look at our existing ordinances. We also did some internet research on how other cities provide assistance. And we've got some recommendations to you for nonprofit events that, based on their size, the city would give a certain amount of assistance, ranging from $500 up to $4,000. We also have proposed some criteria for designating a city signature event. And one of the things we were very mindful of was making sure that our current signature events that these coincide with them. One of the things that we also realized is that City Council has already adopted resolutions for our existing signature events, so this would have no impact on them. We've also proposed a definition for a nonprofit special event, so that we now can have something to relate to the assistance, not just that it's a nonprofit organization. And as I mentioned before, a revision to the nonprofit organization that it would just be a 501c. There's also some additional items that we would like to ask you about, and that's regarding whether or not we should have a fixed application date, so that we can tie the granting of assistance to the adoption of your budget. In other words, we would say if a special event wished to have assistance from the city, they would have to make application by a certain date each year. We also would like to ask you about a clawback provision. Let's say that we grant assistance to an event that says they're going to have 1,000 people, but they only have 500. Some type of clawback provision. And if you feel that special signature events, if having a maximum of $5,000 is truly enough, I can tell you that most recently our signature events have an actual cost of around $7,500. So we take the $5,000 off the top and the applicants end up, owing the city $2,500 or more. And then whether or not we should develop criteria for the nonprofit events. I don't think we should, but if you feel that we need to develop similar criteria to that of the signature event, then we can do that as well. We're here tonight to seek your guidance regarding the changes that are provided in your memorandum. And then if you do so feel we should, then we'll bring back an ordinance that would amend this section. And Mr. Boulware and I, he helped me very much in putting this all together, and so we're available to address any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Cobb. Who wants to start?
I'll go.
Okay, you're up.
We put this in effect because many years we would get asked by many groups, can you waive this fee? Can you help us with that? Can you give us this? Can we have the gym? Can we have the gym all night? Can we have the gym free all night? Can we have the gym on a Saturday? Can we have the gym? Can we have this place? Can we have that place? Can we have the baseball fields? Can we have the soccer fields? Can we have this? We're a nonprofit, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, a constant, until we put this in. We put this in place very clearly, and it straightened a lot of things out. We've added one event, the barbecue blowout. It was looked upon as another event of the size and stature that could bring. Again, there's a lot of big barbecue events out there currently in the nation, and it has a very big following. And both the other events that are part of the signature at this time, draw in a lot of people to Oviedo. Bring a great crowd, not just Oviedo people, but from outside, not only the surrounding cities, but outside the area to come to it. So I look at it as it's kind of worked very well so far. The multiple designations sponsored by or organized, again, we added events to that because it had always been an odd kind of float through. Was the Dr. MLK celebration in the park. It wasn't really our event. We were held, so it kind of helped solidify that also, which had always been a nebulous how that floated and how does the city really, how do we organize the event and pay for this much and do a lot for the event, but it's really not our event. So I think it straightened out a lot of things for us. I don't see a problem, personally. If there's a great event that I think Drew or the city manager or council members, again, the barbecue came from a city council member, and the MLK came from all of us kind of questioning and working through that as how does it fit in? Because it doesn't. It's not our event. So I think there's avenues for us to look at. Does this event bring it to the highest level, to the second highest level? Can it be put, in different categories for us, and thus free up some of the fees? And that's what it really comes down to, is how much fees and how can we participate and add to that. I think it works fairly well. If we want to add events, I think that's incumbent on whoever, be it Drew and the city manager, to come forward and say, listen, there's an event. We feel it really signifies the city. It puts the city out there in a great way. It'll help the city in these ways, in advertising, in getting the good name, family value name out of the city, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We think this is one that we really rises, to the highest level, or maybe not. Maybe it goes to just the second highest level, nonprofit level, or an event organized. So, bringing forth events. Again, we have our own marshmallow drop events that we designate. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think of it that we put ourselves through the same rigor and say, well, our events have to match the rigor to kind of be under these guidelines, to get and waive our own fees and help the others. As far as 501c, that 3 stays. 501c3, period, end of sentence, to me. There's a huge difference between a 501c and a C3 and anything else. I think the difference is significant and should be there for a reason. If we're going to give services away, so to speak, use the city's time, effort, money, facilities, it should be to a 501c3, not to just someone who's a nonprofit. I'll say technically, it's a nonprofit. I want a true, what everyone would declare as a true nonprofit. The money comes into a nonprofit and goes out in a voluminous way, and that's a 501c3. They give away the services and money. So to me, a 501c3 would be keeping that in. If we need to up the cost, if you see, again, it's been how many years, 5, 6, 7 years that this has been in effect? If you see, costs have gone up, obviously, in 5, 6, 7 years. They go up every year. So if the costs of services, our costs are going up, our costs to pay our people, do our things are going up, then yes, I understand. The level of $5,000 now does not equate to the level of what we offered $5,000 worth of services 5, 6 years ago. So if it needs to raise, come back, we raise that portion of it. But I really don't see adding more debt, more complexity to, can we claw back? No, I really have no desire to see anybody writing that we came back and started asking after an event. The city came back and said they want their $2,250.78 back because they found out that out of the 1,000 people that were supposed to be there, there were only 585 registered people. And we're arguing with a nonprofit organization to please give us money back because we feel you only had 558 people versus the 1,000 that you were required to have. I'm there for any corporation that we give any money to and they promise jobs, I'll claw back, get it back, and get back our attorney fees. I'm really not into putting ourselves in the situation of having to even want to ask a clawback in any way, shape, or form. So I think the complexity that comes with making these changes is not a desirable thing to me. It's worked very well. Can we, if you want to get some rough designations, what would be a signature event? Some of these are good, but I think one of them that needs to be there is it's designed to bring outside people. Just like economic development isn't to bring, no offense to a retail store. A retail store is not economic development. Economic development is having outside money and people coming into the area. So people from outside of Central Florida, they're coming to Oviedo because that event, be it Great Day in the Country, Taste of Oviedo, I mean, those are very well-known attended that draw from well outside just the Central Florida area. So, I'll use Mount Dora as a name that people, you go Mount Dora, you start thinking festivals and things like that. Well, you can start putting that as, if it would make that happen, then that's an event I think could start the process to rise up. And I think theoretically in my mind, it's a rising process. You don't start at the top. You come up the ladder, and if you're this, and it really, look, this thing's growing, it's becoming an event. It's outgrowing the constant growth of, wow, look at how good this is, means if they're like, listen, can we have a little more? It would be great if we could do this, then it would allow us to expand that, then that would be the triggers to me. That's it.
Councilwoman, it looks like you have something on your mind. You're next. Stand to his right.
How
Go
can you
ahead.
always tell that? I can let the other ones talk first if they
Keith,
like.
you up?
I can talk.
Go ahead.
A little bit different approach. Deputy Mayor Schenk made a lot of good points, but they're really points that are already in place. We've got rules for signature events. What I think we need to discuss is we've got a new venue called Oviedo on the Park, and we need to find uses for it. And when I think of, you talk about Mount Dora, I think about Winter Park. They've got that Central Park, and they have a lot of signature events there, but they also have a lot of events that I'll call low impact. They start at 6 or 7 in the morning, and they're done by 10 in the morning, and there's a few streets they block off. And, I'm talking specifically about these 5Ks they have. And they have 4 or 5 a year They don't bring in thousands of people. Some of them only bring in a couple hundred. But they do bring people into the town, but it's a relatively low impact. What I'd like to know, I'm not sure if we're going to make a decision tonight, but Brian, how do we handle the 5Ks that we have at other venues in the city, like Oviedo Rising? I'd like to know what support we give those and how they pay for those. And what I'd like to see is some mechanism for us to start utilizing the Oviedo on the Park as a venue for these types of events. Doesn't have to be a 5K, it could be something similar, but that's what comes to my mind, and those are the ones I'm most familiar with. I'm not sure if the signature events have a duration of 8 hours or what, but these things I'm speaking of are only 3 to 4 hours at the most, so maybe we can reduce the fees because the amount of support is going to be much less. So I know we're growing right now with the park on how to utilize it, but I think this is a pretty good avenue for other organizations to come in and maybe use it. I'm not saying we need to do it for free, but Councilman or Deputy Mayor Schenk has a good point. There should be some sort of advance notice. We ought to be able to plan for it and not have to do it in a week's notice or whatnot. But Drew, if you can help us out with the numbers on what's involved with something like that. You might want to call Jay Getty at Haggerty. He just had a 5K in the neighborhood right there on Lockwood. I think he had sheriff support for that, but it was started at 8 and it was done by 9. A couple roadblocks and it was over. So those are the type of simple things I think we can start supporting. Good. Mark?
Well, I just think simple is the easier approach here. And, Brian, I think I agree with you. The section you proposed here with all the nonprofits and the different level of support, I don't think we need that. This agenda item rose from a request on what is a signature event, for somebody wanting to have a signature event. That's why we're discussing this tonight, and it needs to be talked about. But, I like to use the example, you have a young person, just came out of high school, shows up in a job interview, he's got a great work ethic, but he doesn't have a lot of experience. And, you don't give him the job. And he says, well, how am I going to show you how good I am if you don't take a chance on me? And, sometimes you take a chance and you find a diamond in the rough. I think this is really very simple to me. We don't have a lot of people coming to the city and saying we want to be signature events. We have people coming for some type of support. But for me, I forgot if it was Steve or Keith that said it, but I think we're all pretty in tune to what's going on. And the example I use is we have some events in the city that have been going on for years that are not signature events, but they have shown the possibility of being much bigger. And when the city puts its resources behind them, these things tend to really take off. I mean, there's a couple of them I could think. We are not bound to make everybody who comes and asks to be a signature event. But people who have done it on their own without our help and have events in the city that are very well attended, we really need to look at them and say, hey, do we want to partner with them? And then we can make them that much bigger. Great Day in the Country, Taste of Oviedo weren't always the events they are today. They're there because we help them and things get growing. So for me, this is very simple. The nonprofit thing, I think you're opening up a can of worms. People see this. Now you have this influx of stuff. We're talking about city signature events. So for me, I think if somebody's been running an event in the city for a couple years and it's doing really well and they want us to help, I think it's incumbent upon the staff and the 5 of us. I mean, we can't be France and have referendums on everything. We've got to make some decisions. Hey, yes, you're right. You've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. Wow, you have 2,000 people out there. This might really be a good thing to have. And I think that's how, Barbecue Blowout got in here. Some of us may not be into that, but they've shown that wow, that's a big event. And it's very successful now. So ones that ask, show us what you've done in the past. And if we have a couple of them here that I could think of off the top that have done really well, then I think we should at least consider making them signature events. But a couple things, you can't say you want to be a signature event, do it 2 years, now I'm not going to do it anymore. There's got to be some, this is going to go on as long as our other ones have. The clawback thing, just forget that. I mean, someone's out there trying to raise money and in some instances, find cures for things or, things like that. If they have a bad day, we all have a bad day. Sometimes you come to work and, hey, I wasn't into it this week, I didn't give you that 40 hours that I did last week. Well, I'm not going to ask you for your paycheck back. We all have bad weeks, and, and so the clawback thing is not a good thing. But I think let's just take a look at what we have, and I would just tell people, okay, you got to show us a little bit of, what are you doing out there? We can't just hold you by the hand and create a signature event. But I think that's the point I want to make. I don't think we need any of this, honestly, in here. This is just more government and it's just crazy. Somebody has shown us that it's a good event, and we want to make it bigger. Then I think we all, the 5 of us, our staff, we look at it and say, you know what, you have proven yourself. And there's a lot of our residents going that enjoy these events. And there's 2 of them I could think of, but I won't bring that up now. That's not what we're here for. But to me, that's just very simple. So that's all I got.
Councilwoman?
Okay. Everyone had some really good points. I guess I think of it a little bit differently. Oviedo is known, and Seminole County is known for all the wonderful work that everyone does. There's a lot of volunteer organizations, a lot of nonprofits. It's a very giving community, very giving, and everybody's always wanting to help everybody, and I applaud everyone who does that. I think the structure that we have right now works, where we have signature events. We took events that have a known success rate. Taste of Oviedo has been going on for how many years now? 25 years. Great Day in the Country is having their 43rd year, so they have a proven record. So when we started it, we chose them, said yes, they will be a signature event. I don't like this fees for the events. I think when you try to measure an event by people, you never know how many people you get in an event. The only way you know is if you collect tickets at the door, sell tickets at the door where you can count them. But a big event, people coming in and out, walking, driving, taking a bus, it's impossible to measure. So I just don't think that would work. I think one of the things that I was listening to here is one of our problems, and I think that falls on us as the City Council, is we don't have anything really defining a signature event, what the criteria is for a signature event. And as Mr. Cobb said, it was up to us. We created the signature events and we approved it. So maybe we should work a little bit on setting this criteria to say this is what we want a signature event to be, what it will bring to the city, how will it benefit the city, how will it benefit our residents who ultimately pay for any of the services that we're giving away. Because that's a lot of money, to put out there, a lot of money to be paying, and we're using other people's money for that. So I think we have to be very diligent, and I think we should come up with a plan to say this is our signature events, this is what they can do, what they can't do. Nonprofits, if they want an event, if they're on the city property, I think waiving fees and sign permits, I think that's that's a big help for them. But I think we just have to be real good stewards of the money, and so I think it's good the way it is. I think we need to improve it and set that criteria.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, there are many good points made this evening, but most cognizant point made is the amount of requests that we used to receive for everybody to just have us waive fees for everything. And, that just goes straight down to the bottom line of the budget. We start providing all the police services, the public works services, this service, that service. As we heard earlier, most of the signature events run about $7,500 worth of staff time, if not more. You start adding them, that money has to come from somewhere. Now, that being said, events are quality of life in the community. Events are never going to recoup all their dollars. We have challenged our Parks and Rec department over the years to recoup 50% of the monies that they spend on our special events, and they do that as an aggregate over all the events, and they do that every year. And the way they recoup it all is through sponsorships, sales at the events, booths at the events that they sell to the different businesses, and so on and so forth. So inclusive of 4th of July, which is an extremely expensive event, obviously, because of the fireworks involved, right down to all the others you've heard us mention this evening, Drew, you bring in over 50% of the cost of those events back into the general fund. So that's where we need to be careful. Yes, it is true there isn't a true definition in here of what is a signature event, but a signature event was always thought of, as Deputy Mayor Schenk pointed out, an event that brought folks in from outside to the city and kind of showed off the city, so to speak. I mean, that was always the intent. The last one we added, the barbecue blowout, if most remember back, barbecue blowout paid their fees in full the first year. Paid them all. Put on the event, drew 15,000, 20,000 people to that thing, and have just about every year since they've been having it over at the mall. Now, as Councilman Britton pointed out, the issue that we're running into is that we do have this beautiful new facility that everybody wants to use. And this beautiful new facility does need to start to generate revenue so Drew can meet his 50% return that we, every year at budget time, is one of the first things that we'll look at in his line item. But then again, we do have to get the park programmed and get events happening. The events coordinator position, I think, is going to, in my mind and opinion, I think once that position is filled, we're going to see a lot more use over at the park, because there's going to be somebody that's going to be their only job. In the last year or so, staff really has been working all the bugs out of the park, figuring out what can be done, what can't be done, how it should be done, what works, what doesn't, and they've done a good job at that. I really do think we need to drill this down a little bit more and figure out how we do help some of these very worthy causes that have been putting on events for a few years and, have grown them into, 1,000 people coming out. We have two, and they have both over the years requested different types of help from us. One requires police help. I guess they get that now. The other doesn't, but I think they might pay for that. I'm pretty sure they do. The other has been holding it at a facility where that really isn't necessary at this point. But they're looking to grow it into, Keith, a bigger event. So it'll be an all-day event, so it'll take over the park for the whole day. So, we give up the use of the park for the whole day. You have this event out there. It's for one specific charity, so we do it for one specific charity, not that this isn't, my God, a worthy cause that they have, and something that is not paid attention to very much, and all the attention is being brought to this disease by this one person who suffered a tragic loss. But then how do we say no to the next one that comes in if we don't have some sort of criteria? How do we say, and I know that's what the resolution says, but, how do we sit here and say, we like you, but we don't like you? So we've got to define this so whatever we do is just the same for everybody. I mean, that's what it's incumbent upon us to do. And we need to do it fairly quickly, Drew and Brian, to get some more information put together for us so that, we can give you all some guidance on the one that wants to come up in May or whenever it is. I understand the attendance and the percentage, and, I kind of like that sliding scale, but it is going to be a little hard to measure. I mean, I can certainly understand that. But the clawback, now, I know everybody says no clawback. I get it. I understand. How do you go back and say, your event only did X? So we have to figure out some way where, even if it's not a clawback, maybe it's a refund from us. You pay your fee up front. Your event smashes all your records. Well, here you go. I don't know. That just might complicate it, and it just might be easier to, like Councilman Hankins suggested, let them stand up at the plate, take a swing, see what happens. I can say the two that come to my mind, they draw 1,000, 1,200 people. That's what they draw, and it's mostly locals. I mean, we all know what these events are. We've been to them. I've seen some of the faces in the audience at them. So, yes.
I'm just, if I can add.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just trying to get to what we need
I think we've come up with, we need some helpful, I don't want to say criteria, but I'll use that word for a signature event. What we're utilizing, it seems we've all come up with that kind of, we want to have a little bit of a defining, what are we utilizing as calling a signature event? Staff recommend, put together a recommendation for possible new dollar amounts, a little justification why. I mean, it's an easy justification. I'm not saying it's difficult, but if you feel, hey, that $5,000 for those events, and other dollars, whatever the others are, that is. And as Councilman Britton alluded to, and we've all said, like these other events, running events are a biggie. That's the one that we're talking about right now. And whether that's the kicking off point to another bigger event some other time or in the future, whatever, but maybe defining, as Councilman Britton said, it's not a full-day event.
Yeah,
if it will be in Oviedo on the Park, we may have two categories, a 5K category, that's Oviedo in the Park, a 5K in the streets, because that will probably require more police effort, more other things. Whether the dollars are the same or how we look at it, I don't know, but if it needs to be two different ways we look at it, we look at it two different ways.
Yeah, 5K done by 10, whatever.
Whatever, yeah. They're all
done by
here
10.
It's, that they open up at 5 o'clock is when, registration, blah, blah, blah. It's as early as 5 a.m. All things have to be done, cleared by noon. Whatever you guys can kind of see as a, so that way.
Right, because that's what most of these nonprofits do to raise their money. They do these 5Ks.
It's, again, 1,000, it starts at 500, 300 people possibly. Maybe it goes up to 5,000. A rainy day comes out, it's at 25, whatever it is. But these are events that, again, people and organizations want to start with and see that they can get some sponsorship to cover the remaining portion of the fees possibly that aren't covered, and then the rest starts coming in for them and helps them out. So maybe defining, we have now 5K events. How we're going to do that. Again, I'll say, much like Publix doesn't allow somebody in the front, looking for money every weekend, it's every other weekend, but whatever the definition of how you could work on these type of events, put together an ideology for us how we can kind of look at this and put together how these 5Ks can work for us.
But we need something back in a couple of weeks. I mean,
well, that's just, again, we got, if there's something pressing right now, go look at that and see how we can do that and whatever we need to do. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Then it waits till next year. That's the way it goes. Again, the barbecue blowout came, paid their own bills one year, and moved on from there. But I think that's a way to start getting us moving forward. And like I said, a lot of these are 5K events that are going to be the little asks, that they don't meet any criteria yet, except they get the nonprofit waiver, possibly, if they're a nonprofit.
Let me just follow up with Drew. Drew, can you come on up here for a second? Just explain the scope to us. And by the scope, I mean the fees. Hi, Drew, how are you?
Well, one of the things in looking at, because we have had.
Well, let me just concentrate on my thought first. What does it cost to rent all of Oviedo on the Park for a day?
$4,500.
And that gets you what?
That gets you the park. Doesn't get you any fees associated.
So it'll get
It doesn't take care of any fees with police, fire, police, park and rec staff.
Right, but that gets you the amphitheater,
That gets you
the
amphitheater,
stage, the lawn.
and closing down the road if necessary, but it doesn't give you any cost as far as closing the road, as far as police and
Right, so
fire.
for $4,500, you own the park for the day?
Yes, sir.
What does it cost you just to have the amphitheater itself? Just the
Amphitheater
lawn?
itself, according to the cost of the day, on a Saturday, the fees, vary from Monday through Thursday, and then Saturdays.
This isn't complicated. Just tell me what the weekends are.
$1,500.
Okay. And what does it cost you to have the inside of the amphitheater? I want to have a wedding there in the event center.
It depends.
Friday, Saturday night.
You're just using the amphitheater?
Yep, I'm just using the inside.
$2,200.
I want to use the inside and the stage.
Yeah,
45.
15 plus then the 22.
So $3,700. I have the whole building for the night, and I can have my wedding there. Okay. All righty. So somebody wants to shut down our entire park and have it for their event, whatever that event it is. I guess there's probably decency standards of some sorts that we have. I'm sure we do. It's a $4,500 bill for 8 hours, 10 hours. How many hours is it?
It's full day, so
Full day.
until 10 o'clock at night.
All right. So, and then during that time, they have the whole park. The public doesn't have access to the park. It becomes their park. Okay.
Well, one of the things we have always looked at, since it is an open facility, it would be hard unless we were doing it in a festival-type setting to where there's fees being associated. It'd be hard to cut the general public just from walking in.
That of course. I just meant in theory.
Yes.
The facility is yours for your event, be it your 5K, your whatever it is that you want to do.
If you rent the facility, whatever. Yes.
Now, I'm sure what the discussion is focused on this evening, Councilman Schenk said it succinctly, what we'd be looking for, Councilman Britton and everybody else, is, we have a new category of events because of this new facility, and I realize, not criticizing, we're growing. We're learning. It's the first time we have a facility like this, and Winter Park's been doing it for 60 years in Central Park. We've been doing it for 9 months. So I get it. Growing pains. I like the idea, and I think everybody up here liked the idea, of you coming back with some sorts of criteria for these morning-type community events. Because those are the folks who paid for the park. Those are the folks who raise the money locally for their different charities. That could be our first step towards now all of a sudden they're having their 5K here, and then their 5K is bringing in 3,000 to 4,000 people. Now, Drew, I know the type of person you are. You'll be the first one to look at that event and say, you know what, if the city, if my department got behind this event, boy, what could I turn this thing into? And then you'd be coming to us with a whole different conversation. So, with everyone's consensus, which I think Councilman Schenk kind of wrapped it all up. I'd like to see us start there and then move on. Let me go to Councilwoman first.
Yeah, I just wanted
Then I'll come
to
to
add a little bit to that. We're really focusing on 5K runs.
Morning events, off-peak
Okay.
time.
But that's what we're kind of like focusing on. But
They're the ones who ask, I think, all the time. Am I Drew, I'm sorry, let me just, one more question. It was said before that we don't get a lot of requests. Now, I know we get a lot of requests. How many requests do you get for events and waiving fees?
Well, we get all kind of, for 5Ks here of late, we're getting more requests on the 5Ks since the new venue has opened. We get requests all the time for rental of the gymnasium, rental, aquatic facility, field usage and that type of thing. So
Okay,
we turn
waive our
that time.
fees,
Yes,
we're a
yes.
501c3.
And since we passed the new ordinance, we went away from that.
Right.
So
'cause
what
in
I
the
was
past,
going
it
to-
used to be a normal thing.
Oh.
You'd be showing up here asking us.
All the time.
Right, we'd have people at the podium asking us all the time, and, then we get put in a very terrible situation where, as Councilwoman pointed out earlier, we're stewards of public tax dollars giving it away. Okay, I'm sorry.
So what I was going to suggest is, when you're doing this research, open it up a little bit, not just the morning run. Let's say that you have a nonprofit that wants to do an evening type of fundraiser.
Off-piece.
So they're not going to rent the whole park all day long, in even parts of the park. What if they just wanted to rent that, the grassy area that's between the kids' playground and the cultural center? I'm thinking if you have a run, you can set stuff up there and not even use the building, not even use the lawn, but just the street. Have a price for that. Really break it down and try to think of the different types of events that could be there. Morning, evening type events. Maybe they're not going to use the whole park. Maybe they're going to use part of the park or the lawn, that area near the small stage. They might want to rent that for some type of fundraiser. So if you break it all, I mean, it's going to be a lot of work, but if you break it all down and try to figure out how much that would cost to rent it out, I think it would help. It could help us to define some of these requests and for us to move forward with what we're thinking of as far as signature events, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I didn't get to.
Hang, just one quick second. Councilman Hankins.
Oh, yeah, you got a quick one? No, I just was going to, that was part of my fourth thing I really was going to say is we've got an events coordinator that's coming on board. I don't want to jump too far ahead of the cart, the cart before the horse. That's why I really limited it to those things that let's just start the definition of a signature. Staff puts together a recommendation of 7,500 if that's, or how much more than 5,000. And start looking into, again, it doesn't have to relate specifically to Oviedo in the Park, but morning events, again, Albia runs because that's the easy one that 501s want to do because it's a money raiser for them that's simple. It requires just manpower usually. If you can get that, because let's let the person we're going to hire tell us how we're going to run that park, what events they think will be successful, how we should really program that park effectively. Because, like you said, the one thing is, if you start taking up the whole day, well, if you got a wedding that's scheduled and they're paying $3,700 for that facility, and outside we got a whole lot of stuff going on, you start crossing over and it becomes, we're kicking our own selves. So we have to be wary of that and how that all plays out. And that's when an events person who has experience with this will help us plan. So that was my fourth thing that I didn't get an opportunity to say. But
I'm sorry.
Those three things, I think we can do now. And the rest, we've given a lot of ideas for that events person. They're going to come on and hopefully bring even more clarity and ideas to us, which is what you're doing. You're giving us, let's do the next step
Yeah.
more, and I agree.
But I agree that the signature, we need to define that first.
Sorry.
Okay.
Councilman Hankin, you have the floor.
I'm actually glad I let you go. You made some good points that I was going to say, so that was good. But, I think, Drew, let's not lose focus of why we're talking about this. And the mayor pointed this out. We have a couple of people that came and wanted to be a signature event. But the thing that I would encourage you strongly, I mean, we all make these decisions together. I say this to you all the time. It's not just us. It's all of us. The staff, we have to make it. And Steve's point with this new event coordinator, we cannot tie this person's hands. The resume of the person that we thought we were getting, it's a shame she stayed in Hawaii because she had a resume that was incredible. She might have been able to land us Tom Jones.
Is he still alive?
Yeah. He's still.
Wait, who
still
just
alive.
asked if he's still alive?
He's still alive. He's still alive. No, but in all seriousness, the first criteria you got to have is a proven track record. And the two that we're thinking about have those records. So at that point, that becomes very easy. Do we want to, and I think Dominic said this to you, when the city puts its expertise and its help behind us, these things blow up like crazy. And these other ones that we're thinking about, they could turn into that. But the key for them is They never came and asked for help before. Now they are because they're getting bigger. So I think if you've spent your own time and money and you have 1,000 people that are showing up, 1,500 to an event that we're not even a part of, well, I want in on that because they are going to not only help themselves, but they will help everybody in the city. And those events could become so much bigger with just that seal on it. So I think that's got to be the first criteria. Have you done this before? Because everybody has a dream. And you always want to, you don't want to ever crush anybody's dream. But somebody that, my God, is taking it on themselves, hey, I'm going to take this and do this by myself. And I'm going to show you. And now they've shown us all how big it can become. Well, I want in on that. And I don't think we should ever limit ourselves to just our big bomb signature events. You know, why can't we have one every weekend? Who cares? If it needs
$5,000 per event.
Yeah.
yes, but if it's going to bring back money in here, you know, you're going to have all these restaurants in there. You're going to have all these amenities that people will pay for, things to do. Maybe, hey, I'm going to stop in at the pool in the summer. I'm going to do this. The $5,000 always will come back to you. People will remember Oviedo. They'll come. But I agree, there is a budget and we have to do. But right now, don't lose focus that only one is asked, maybe two. So this whole other can of worms needs to be discussed, but right now you got to figure out, did somebody prove their worth and just did it without us? And I think a couple of them have, and they're worthy of at least, you know, having a shot with us behind them, you know, having us hold their hand. So keep that in mind when you bring something back.
All right, anything else?
No, sir.
Drew, you got a good idea of what we're looking for?
Yes.
Mr. Cobb?
No, Mayor, I don't. I'm sorry. I apologize, and I have tried
Mr. Cobb,
to...
you've been catching up with Mr. Colbert over there and not paying attention to the conversation?
I have been taking my usual notes, and here's the thing.
Should I ask Dr. Correa if she understands where we are?
You can if you want. Here's the thing. Nonprofit special events get one type of assistance. We waive their $80 special event fee, and we waive their $35 sign fee, and we waive their $35 tent fee. That's what we waive.
Good.
And we have events. I'll give you the perfect event is project graduation at Oviedo High School. Every year they wish to use Long Lake Park. And Mr. Bower, I believe the rental fee is $350 for Long Lake Park.
I think it's in that
Right.
ballpark.
They can't, you know, every year they come and they berate us over the fact that they have to pay that $350 rental fee. You
But
know,
I find them a sponsor every year
you
for
find
it.
them a sponsor. The mayor
Every
goes
year
and-
I find them a
The mayor
sponsor.
finds them a sponsor to pay that fee. As with the most recent case is that we have an event that's currently out at the mall. They want to move over to Oviedo in the Park. As soon as we said, well, it's $4,500 to rent the park for the entire day because that's what they want to do is create a festival. I'm a nonprofit. I'm raising money for a charity. What do you mean $4,500 a day? We can waive the $80 application fee and the $35. And that was the whole thing was, and what I'm hearing tonight, at least what I think I heard tonight was that you're okay with just waiving those 3 permit fees for a nonprofit.
That doesn't change. That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And that we shouldn't be waiving any facility rental fees and that we shouldn't be waiving any direct costs through our in-kind services
No.
for nonprofits.
Right.
But what I also heard was you would like us to bring you back criteria for signature events.
There you go.
Just us
Is that correct?
putting it together. We've kind of talked some. You put some great ones in there.
Right.
We said a little here. Just kind of,
And how do we help them? I'd like to add one thing to that, if I can, because what I thought I heard in the conversation is, you know, and Councilman Henkin makes a point. I mean, you know, some of these events have been going on longer than others. They have a proven track record. We know they're going to have 1,000 people. I mean, that's what they have. And, you know, quite frankly, that's about the number, Councilman Henkin. You know, they're 1,000, 1,200 people. That's what comes out to these things. I mean, we've all been to them. As a matter of fact, the one that we're debating tonight is the one I hit all of us up for each and every year that we sponsor personally ourselves. Right? Every year I get a check from you and we send them $500 and we do our own personal one for them. But, Brian, I think what we need, and Councilman Britton brought this up succinctly, I think, and Councilwoman Drago was expanding on it, and everyone has said it in some form or fashion. We have to figure out how on these off-peak hours of the park, if we can get something in there programmed at a more affordable cost to the nonprofits who want to do, simple 5Ks are a lot of fun. They bring out 1,000, 1,200 people. They're there, 4 or 5 hours. I mean, the one at the mall is done by 9 or 10. I think it's got to be done because they have to do it on a Sunday because the mall doesn't open till noon, blah, 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 blah. The other one is done in historic downtown area. At a private facility, and all we do is go out and close the roads down for them, and it's really not even a big stretch of road because they use the trail for theirs. But the pancakes are good. But anyway, I think if those types of events want to come over at off-peaks to the park, and then we can see the excitement, you can see the generation, you can see where they're going with this thing, then we know you like a book. You'll be the first one who will come to us and say, hey, guys, we can do this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we got to get them.
Okay. The question I have is, as Mr. Cobb,
Why have we spent an hour on this?
I understand where you're going, but the thing that I'm trying to put my finger on is you're saying bring back information about like the two that have brought possibilities to us. We're talking about one that's about 1,000, a little bit over 1,000, and the other one's growing. The one that we're talking about that's in May, they're wanting to do a festival. They're not wanting to do a 3-hour event. They're wanting to do a 5-6-hour event.
And that may not be, again, I have no problem. That may
But
not be possible.
I guess my question to council is, though, is a 1,000-person, a 1,500-person event going to become a signature event?
Well, it's only 1,000, 1,500 person now. Once you put your name on it, and Drew, you just brought up a great point. Mayor, may I? This one is not just going to be a 5K. So the question that needs to be asked of anybody who comes in here, okay, you got the 5K, that's great. Mayor points out you're going to get 1,200. But when you have one that's established and has now got bands and all these other things for kids, and other than the 5K, some people don't run. But now there's all these other attractions out there, so that's got to be asked too. That's why when I saw this memo, I think that's why we're talking about this for now, because we've gone off into other things. Let's focus on the signature events, and I think you can make this a little bit easier than the other things. We hit that down the road, right?
I think we need to define what a signature event is, which is what we've asked you to do. And,
I think we said we were all happy with what the signature events are currently.
Which are large.
Yeah. And that kind of thing.
signature
Can
event
I-
has to be
So-
large.
Can I just ask one thing? I gave you 11 things in your memorandum as far as what a signature event could be. I think, from what I'm hearing, number 3 should not be included, which is expected to draw 10,000 more attendees.
No, that's not what we're saying.
Not at all. I
Okay.
definitely think it should be in there.
Well, would you tell me, if you look at those 11, what of those 11 are good and what aren't?
I thought this was a discussion on.
Yeah, Brian, this is a discussion item. This isn't for direction. So what we're going to have to do is either make this into a work session if you need more information. I mean, we can't sit here right now and debate this. I mean,
Okay.
if you need that depth of direction, then we'll provide it to you. But what we need you to do as our staff is to go look at what other communities do, just to get an idea. But we don't have to do what everybody else does, to see how they define these things, so it can come back to us and say, here's some ideas. You're right, we have these 11 ideas right here. The signature expense supposed to draw 10,000. Is it proposed at public or private facility? Flow of vehicles, blah, 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 blah. They're all great points. But, rather than asking us to sit here and formulate it on the dais this evening, put it together, find out what others are doing. I mean, every community faces this problem. We're not the first one. It's just our first time with an event, with a facility, I should say, that can hold these types of events. So just bring that back to us, and then take what's here. We can have them either side by side, or you can incorporate what works from here into it and say, here you go, guys, this is what we propose.
And again,
It's got to be simple.
Does anybody know when Great Day in the Country was designated a signature event? What year? I know Cindy talked about 48 years, but do we know what year that it was made a signature event?
The
2012.
signature event was when we put them
We
in.
declared these signature events in 2012. That's when it was.
Here's what used
Okay,
to
all right,
happen.
so wait, a better question that I have is when Great Day in the Country first started, now, you were probably here 48 years ago, I think you're still a mayor, how many people came out to that event? And the point I'm trying to make is, I'll bet you it wasn't 60,000 people, and that's what you got to keep looking at. See, that's why I really hated this, and Brian, don't take this the wrong way, you brought up all these good points. I hated this agenda. I liked it the way it was before, because you're getting into all this other stuff. We have to decide. We have all our eggs in three baskets: barbecue, taste, and Great Day. You know, you want to expand and have some new stuff. These are our three things we all look forward to, and they're great, but why not have 3 or 4 more that are good? You know what I'm saying?
Can I ask council? I mean, this could be real quick and
Good.
not adding a ton of work for staff and to have us having doing work sessions. If myself and staff and Mr. Cobb, if we had the ability when people come to us and request this, we just utilize what's in place. But when someone thinks that they have an event that could climb into a signature event, we use the same type of, what the barbecue event was, in which they pay the first year. And in second year, we can look at it becoming a signature event that we would then bring to council for approval to become a signature event in the future, if it's based upon the criteria. Now, the one thing I would like to do, I mean, we do want to put some criteria, because right now there is nothing as far as setting numbers and that type of thing. That's one of the things Brian and I talked about, is that we don't have a criteria for me to be able to bring it to council and say, hey, someone's approaching us. And Mayor, you're right. I mean, we've got groups right now that are coming to me, and we want to do things in conjunction with them as a city.
Everybody forgets what it used to be like. You were here, I was here, Brian was here. I mean, they would all come here to this podium, and then we'd have to sit here and say no.
Please waive the fees for.
Right,
again,
and how quickly everybody forgets, and no offense, but all those little red and white striped shirts showing up here every year when it was on our agenda for us to waive the fees for Great Day in the Country. And then every year there would be I'll call it a discussion over what fees would be waived and how much, and last year you did this and now you're not, and they would sit up there and, and it would be for all the events. Taste of Oviedo, right? Corey used to come up here all the time, and Tim and the whole crew before them. Every year it was the same thing. That's why
Every
we.
special event permit.
Pardon?
Every special event permit
Right.
had a request to waive fees, and so the council is the only one that can waive fees.
Right,
Brian, can I ask you why?
which is why we said,
No. You said don't do it anymore.
You asked the question, and Drew, I appreciate you trying to cut to the chase here and make this easy. Okay, so all the nonprofits come, they get their permits and all that, whatever those fees are, you've been doing that, you can do that.
Yes, sir.
Don't change that. That's good. Don't lose focus. We are talking about city signature events. Just stay there for now, and then you can make this much easier. You can bring us back something very easy. What you think it should be? Does it have the potential? You're a good eye on that. You know, we got to leave.
but what Drew wants to do is make them prove it out the first
1
year,
year.
like we did with
Well,
barbecue.
just like barbecue cookout.
I would agree, but the two that we're all hearing about and then we've been approached, they've already proved themselves.
They have not proven themselves out to be a signature event,
Well,
is what you're hearing
but
from the other members.
where I'm going
I have not
where
heard
I'm going
that.
with that, Mayor, is this.
I have not
If, for
heard that.
example, the one group who has approached us, if they want to go ahead and rent the park this year, which they have asked me to get all the fees together, if they want to go ahead and rent the park, run their event this year, if they can prove to us by doing that it's going to be a possibly 5,000 person event during this year's event, then I think that's something that we could look at that would grow into a signature event in the future. If someone's coming to us and they go ahead and pay the fees and it's a 1,200 person event, a 5K, and they go, oh, but this could be a 10,000 person run, no, I'm not going to bring that to you. I would want the ability to bring it to Mr. Cobb's attention and say, Mr. Cobb, I think this is an event that we should be able to take to council based upon the criteria that we've set, and that this will become possibly a signature event that can bring in the outside groups and
Exactly what we do with barbecue event. Barbecue event had advertising all over Central Florida. They had a radio station behind them. They had bands. They had music. They turned it into some kind of a Jack Daniel's qualifying something or other. I mean, people come from all over the place.
Mr. Mayor, Brian, basically, right now, you have no methodology to bring it to us at all.
No.
You just have to say no. You're asking for the methodology to some way to bring it for us. That's really what we've been talking.
Right
We
now-
haven't been talking 15 minutes about that, but that's really what we've been talking. You
Yes.
asked that of us in a, I don't want to say roundabout, but you didn't ask it directly. You said, listen, I got no way to bring this to you.
Yes.
How do I set it up? Find a way.
Okay.
Put together criteria. To me, it's like we talked about. If there's a criteria for a signature event and some way to escalate it, that's all we're talking about is how to give you the ability to at least bring it to us. Because technically, it says you say no, and it's done.
Right.
And unless somebody up here says we want to discuss it somehow, it's done.
It not only says that the city manager shall deny it, it says that the city manager shall not bring it to city council.
And not bring it, exactly. As I said, it says it in there.
And I remember when we put that language in there to stop this.
Right. So, again, if there's a criteria,
Didn't work.
and that's why it's the basis here is we got to start at the basics. Put together a criteria for what is a signature event. If it's not in time, no offense. If it's not in time and they want to continue and have an all-day long event, then
Prove the model.
Let me put it this way. I'm sure every one of us here, as we can all sit here and say what we've done to help every event so far, I'm sure we'll put all our mindsets together to go try and help offset some of that cost and help that event do an all-day event if that's the case. But that's not our decision to make at this point. We see that there's a problem. We see that there's gaps in the way we've been doing this or how we can do this better. Let's aim to doing this better. That's it. And I think we've laid that out. Define what it is. Get more money if that's what we need to put together as part of the packages. Wait till the event's coordinated, till someone who's got this idea can really help us wrap this up and put it together. And the third thing, I can't even remember, it's so far gone. Add another level. Find out how a 5K morning event, short-term event, again, morning is offset, how that
Right,
can
that
work for
doesn't
us.
become a $4,500 fee to close the park. I mean,
Right, how that can be, again, on the grass, if you're going to do it on the grass without the thing, but this is what you get for that.
Well, here's the thing. Even if we lowered the fees, even if we established a separate fee for the 5K, I still can't waive it.
Right, I understand.
Okay,
I'm not,
all right, I just want to make sure
I'm
that
just,
we understand
again,
that.
how to bring that down from, hey, for them to do a fee in the park right now is going to be.
Instead of
I know it's
$4,500, do
$4,500
$2,200.
Plus the police, plus the whatever, plus the whatever. How do we bring that down to
no
them?
one's
and
using
do
the
as much?
park at,
Or
7 to 9 in the
we
morning.
create another category that is, yes, we're going to give for a short-term run.
Right.
Yes, that only really impacts from 5 a.m. till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, then yes, we'll waive $5,000 because that's an expensive location. It's not all day we're taking, we're only taking, so that fee, for the park fee is really only, instead of $4,500, we create a new fee level for that to be only $450.
Whatever.
Things like that. We can
Right.
work the other side of it to make, if you want, for a specialized morning run event that ends before 10 o'clock and blah, 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 and gets no internal facilities and no that and requires nothing of this, it's $450 versus $4,500.
Yeah, 'cause 5Ks bring in all their own,
They're
restrooms
gonna, exactly.
usually.
So,
That's
yes,
fine.
they're still gonna have to do the police, they were gonna have to anyway. So, it's not really affecting them, so.
Yeah, you're
That's
gonna-
what I'm kind of, I know you're creative enough, once you get all of us out of our head right now, you can go, oh yeah, we can figure this stuff out pretty easy.
Right.
It'll all make sense what we said tomorrow, we promise.
Well, I basically understand two things. Bring you a criteria in an ordinance, bring criteria for the definition of a signature event. And then this year, when we look at our fee structure, look at how we can create various levels of rental within the facility.
Well, once we
Yeah,
determine
but just don't bring it up into the dais. We got to have a work session about it somewhere along the line. One of your
Oh.
work sessions, bring it to us there.
Well, that's when we'll do it,
Okay.
yes. We'll do it then.
But once we establish the guidelines for a signature event, once we have all that criteria, that's going to be easy for you to look at events and say, do they match what we have put down in an ordinance to say this is a signature event? So you don't look at events and try to make them fit. We have to have our criteria for a signature event and see how the other organizations fit into that. It's going to make it much more easier for you.
You know, and you have to really, too, it's like for me, you have to invest, you know, in your future, so to speak. You know, 15 years ago, if there wasn't that group out here that told us they wanted us to build Oviedo on the park, and they just got frustrated and they went home, we wouldn't have that today. Now we have that. You know, contrary to what somebody believed, that is the people's park. The people voted for that, and we're building it, and that's what they wanted. Don't let one of these signature events keep going to the mall or someplace else because they just can't raise these fees. So the point that Steve made was a good one. Maybe we change the fees a little bit for off-peak hours or whatever you have to do. But, you know, unless you get behind somebody, it's amazing how when somebody gets a little bit of support, how fast they blossom. You know, and you have a couple of events in the city that can turn into that. But if you turn them off, they'll just go keep having their same event. They'll make the same money. They'll accomplish some of their goals, but they're never going to get there. So if you had a feel for it, it's like anything else. It's like any investment. You know, hey, we really think that one may be good for the city. And like you said, the one we're thinking about may be a whole festival. So it may be good, you know. So you got some little things to think about. But don't let one go just because, you know, they may not meet our criteria now, but if we help them 1 year, 2 years, wow, look what this turned into. And there's so many things that you could think of that have turned into that. You know, I can tell you right now, if we all gave up on that hospital over there, we wouldn't see those rafters. And every one of us and everybody out there who wrote cards and letters to every hospital thing, we never gave up. And guess what? We're going to have a hospital in a year. How cool is that? Just don't give up. You will find a way for everybody. That's what you got to do.
You got it, Drew?
Understand.
Mr. Cobb, you clear?
I'm clear.
All righty. Thank you, everyone. It should have been. All righty. Whew. Mr. Cobb.
No report.
That's what we like to hear. Mr. Colbert, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Anything for
report.
us?
Huh?
Nothing for us?
Nothing tonight.
You know, and I promise you you'd be out of here in 25 minutes. Silly me,
I
huh?
think you said 10 minutes. Man.
10 minutes is just for the pledge.
Oh, okay.
All righty.
I'm
Myself,
proud to be
real quick. Speaking about events at the park, Drew, Mardi Gras was awesome. I mean, you must have had 2,000 to 3,000 people out there. First-time event in the cool weather. Next year, you're having the parade. So, excellent. That was great and a lot of fun. The Ironheart Ball from Central Florida Regional Hospitals last Friday. Some of us were able to attend that. They raised $15K for the American Heart Association, which was awesome. And tomorrow is Mayors and Managers. I don't know, what's on our agenda tomorrow, Brian?
Castleberry downtown.
Oh, well, we're going to learn about the Castleberry downtown. Maybe we'll ask them how they handle special events.
They do a 5K.
They do. We'll find out tomorrow. End of my report. Deputy Mayor.
The topping off ceremony also for the Medical Center.
Gosh, yeah, I forgot about
this
that.
past week. Again, monumental time where they like to celebrate that they've hit the top floor and they're ready to go. And
The flag is gone. I'd like to know where it went with all that wind. I drove past it today. The tree branches are still there, but I don't know where the flag went.
Mardi Gras was a very good celebration, Drew. Really, staff, everybody. It just, got there early, and I just watched people just keep coming and coming and coming and coming. Really, for a first-time event, fantastic job.
That it?
Yep.
Councilman Henkin.
No report.
Councilwoman.
No report.
Okay.
Now we're going to get to Keith.
Everybody stop.
Put your feet up.
All right, Keith.
I wasn't even ready to go yet, but no, I just have a few items. One, and I won't go repeat what we've already said, but I did attend the Black History Month event at Oviedo High School.
Oh, I was.
And he's not here tonight for me to congratulate him, but Chief Chudnow was given a special, I guess it was a plaque of appreciation for all his support to the Johnson Hills, Washington Heights neighborhood and OCIA. So I want to congratulate the chief on that. We were going to try to steal the plaque and present it to him tonight, but he wasn't here anyway, so couldn't do that. The only other thing I wanted to mention, and it's a little bit of trivia, but I attended the UCF Foundation board meeting last Friday, and they gave a presentation on UCF's budget. They have a $1.5 billion with a B annual budget. To put that in context, You add the 60,000 students to the 15,000 faculty, it's a $1.5 billion budget for 75,000 people. Compare that to Seminole County. They have an $800 million annual budget with what, 400,000 people? So if anyone thinks that university is not an economic engine that affects us, think again. That's a huge budget they have. They also went into some other things that don't pertain to us, but I thought that was very interesting, and we feel the effects of that every day, and we have to deal with some of the good and the bad of that. But it was just an interesting point that was made, and that's all I have.
Great. All righty, future meeting dates. We have Monday, March 7th, 6 p.m. is our CRA Governing Board meeting, and then also on March 7th we have a regular session. March 21st, there is no meeting. That is spring break week. Monday, March 28th, we have a budget work session at 5:30. That, I think we asked last time, is the preliminary kickoff, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then we have Monday, April 4th, 6:30 p.m., regular session. Mr. Cobb, do you have anything else for the good of the order?
No, sir.
Anybody on council? No. Hearing none, we're adjourned.